Game of Thrones Season 5, Episode 6 is over, but we're just getting started here on post-show recaps, Game of Thrones Live. And now, here are the two guys who are unbowed, unbent, and unathletic. I'm Rob Cesternino. Here's Josh Wigler. Josh, how are you?
I'm really, really weak when it comes to all things athletic. It's true. There's no denying it. I do not know what a sports is.
Yes, okay. We do know what Game of Thrones is, and we are here to talk about the latest episode here tonight. Josh, how you holding up?
Oh, I mean that sucked. that sucked. That sucked. That was a really difficult episode. And a very tough ending. I'm holding up. I'm holding up. I'm glad that I've got you to talk through all of this with, Rob.
Well, we always say nothing good ever happens on wedding day at Game of Thrones.
Wedding day on Game of Thrones is the worst day possible. Worst day. I think I would take a Dothraki wedding over a Bolton wedding, by the way.
We always cry at weddings, and this is no exception because it's not a fun wedding for the Stark Bolton affair.
Yeah. This is a tough start to the marriage. This is a bad start to the marriage. Yeah. So this was difficult. This was really bad, and I know that this is a scene. What happened to Sansa at the end of this episode is something that is really striking a nerve. Just looking at Twitter right now and reading, I've already read a couple of roundups of fan reactions that have been posted online. There are a lot of very, very, very upset people with this Sansa development tonight, and understandably, for sure.
Well, could you just help shed some light on this? Surely, is it just that the imagery and the subject matter is disturbing, or are there other reasons why fans are upset about this?
I think that there's a bunch of things. It's a really complicated issue. I think as for why people are so upset about it. First off, it's just really upsetting. What happened to Sansa is deeply, deeply troubling and upsetting. She has been a character who has been put through so much since we've known her on Game of Thrones. Has started off, wanting to be, basically a fairy tale princess, and that gets, thrown into the trash pretty quickly. And it's been, a long ride for Sansa to kind of like become empowered and become somebody who is, not willing to just, let life have its way with her. She's, somebody who found some backbone, was able to stick up to some of these Lannisters, was able to kind of wheel and deal under Littlefinger's tutelage, and even has this great moment tonight in the episode where she tells Miranda to stuff it. That was great. And I think that people are really bummed to see these circumstances befall Sansa in particular after all that she's already been through on this show. I think that's a big piece of it. And the other piece of it is, or another piece of it at least, is I think that a lot of people have been dreading this moment for a little while now. There's, we've talked about how Season 5 is really the season that's been taking some big departures from the books than any season that we've gotten so far. Sansa's storyline is one of those stories where we don't really know exactly where Sansa's story is going on the show. It's different from what's going on in the books. And what happens tonight to Sansa does happen to somebody in the books who is not Sansa Stark, but there was a lot of thought that, oh, is this where we're going with Sansa? Oh, this is where we went with Sansa. So I think there's a lot of not feeling great about what happened here, and a lot of kind of feeling pretty icky and feeling pretty depressed over this whole scene.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was going in the direction of where Theon was going to maybe come to the rescue here of Sansa, and I thought maybe it was going to be sort of like a la Darth Vader throwing, a spoiler alert about Star Wars Return of the Jedi, throwing the Emperor down the shaft, and as he was hurting Luke Skywalker. I thought maybe that's where we were going to go, but no.
Not yet, at least. It's going to take a little more than that to really shake Theon back to life if this wasn't going to be the thing that does it. But yeah, I think a lot of people were probably, really hoping that was what we were going to get out of Reek. Reek is smelling better than he's ever smelled before, or at least in a long time. Is looking pretty decent. He's allowed to go by Theon Greyjoy at the wedding. You would think that if there was a time for him to kind of snap out of this horrible, horrible funk that he's been in, based on all of the torture and humiliation and all of these horrible things that Ramsay has put him through, you would think that this might have been that moment. It wasn't that moment. I mean, in a classic fantasy or sci-fi story or anything that's a little bit outlandish, you would think that this would be the moment where the hero swoops in, tears the bad guy off, and throws him out of Winterfell. Throws him out of the tower like Jaime Lannister versus Bran. But this is the show where Jaime Lannister pushes Bran out of window. This is the show where the little boy who loves to climb more than anything in the entire world is crippled by the end of the very first episode. So this is not The Empire Strikes Back. This is not Return of the Jedi. This is not that kind of story. This is the story where a guy like Reek, he just watches. He just watches, and we have to watch Reek watching, and it's very terrible. Very terrible.
All right, so we are live here on Sunday night trying to process everything that we've seen here in this episode. Tonight, we've got the chat room open at postshowrecaps.com. We're going to take your tweets in this show at hashtag PSRecaps, and then also on our YouTube channel at postshowrecaps.com/YouTube. All right, so Sansa is officially married. She is officially, the marriage is official, based on what we saw tonight. So that is, we're not going to have that convenient sort of thing that happened with her marriage to Tyrion. And now Sansa is really in the mix here as a Bolton.
Yeah, I think that the good news, if there is such a thing, something we could look forward to, is you got to imagine that Ramsay Bolton has to get his at some point. It did not happen tonight, but this deed does not go unpunished. There has to be some level of karma even in Westeros that a guy like this is going to get taken out, and it's just a matter of who will do it, when will it happen, how will it happen. This guy cannot last, and this would be the way to get Sansa out of this marriage, but barring that, I think, killing Ramsay Bolton, finding some way to take this guy off the field, yeah, Sansa Stark is Sansa Bolton right now.
What we saw down with the conversation between Littlefinger and Cersei about what the ultimate plans that the Lannisters have, where it's going to be, Stannis is heading towards Winterfell.
Right.
That they're going to let the Boltons and Stannis' forces duke it out, and then whoever survives that, then Littlefinger with the Knights of the Eyrie are going to come in and then basically just take those guys out. So one way or the other, we know the end is near for the Bolton era.
Yeah, but the worst part about that is, unless Littlefinger is lying, which would not be beneath Littlefinger is promising Cersei that he'll bring her Sansa Stark's head on a pike. So, potentially this just ends badly for Sansa no matter what.
Yeah, it ends badly, but I can't imagine that part is right. I mean, I don't know what Littlefinger would have to gain by bringing Sansa to the Boltons and then leaving her and then bringing her to Cersei. Like, I'm not sure why that pit stop at Winterfell was necessary if that's his ultimate plan.
Right. No, I mean, listen, I think that Littlefinger is going to fulfill that promise? Is he really going to deliver Sansa's head to Cersei Lannister? Based on everything that we've seen about Littlefinger and his feelings towards Catelyn Stark and now Sansa Stark, I don't buy that for a second. Not a chance in the world, as someone once said. But I do think that I do think it raises questions about where this is going. You have Littlefinger saying that he's going to lead the charge against whoever is left over on the Baratheons and Bolton side of the battlefield, and you just hope that day is coming quick, because I don't want Sansa anywhere near this Ramsay Bolton any longer than she has to be there.
Sansa has a run-in with Miranda, again, up in her bedroom to get ready for the wedding day. And you totally can understand why Miranda wouldn't want anybody else getting their hands on a prize like Ramsay, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he's the goods. He's the real deal. He's the real deal. You really just want to hang on to that guy as long as you got him.
What was she going for there? Like, I thought she was going to try to hurt Sansa, or she was going to try to kill her.
Right.
What was her best case scenario there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Sansa, what a badass, and the guts that it takes to say what she says to Miranda, being like, "Oh, am I stealing your boyfriend? Boo hoo! I'm Sansa Stark. What do you want?" What was going to stop Miranda from just like stabbing her in the bathtub? I thought that's probably what Miranda was aiming for. I thought that Miranda was trying to start some stuff. Is really maybe going to use this as an opportunity to send Sansa off the same way that Catelyn Stark left this world. But I don't know. I think Miranda is just really goading Sansa. I think that she's a lover scorned by this whole situation, and I think that she's just trying to make life as unpleasant for Sansa as humanly possible.
Yeah, but she was just like kind of annoying.
Yeah, she's she's pretty annoying actually. She's that would annoy me, I think.
She's such a Miranda.
She really is such a Miranda. She really is.
She really is. But anyway, so she is, the lady in waiting, and she is going to hopefully wait out this marriage here between Sansa and Ramsay. And it was a beautiful wedding, I do have to say.
That's the crazy thing about it is it actually was like visually stunning. Everything out by the godswood, and there's something about the ceremony itself. While it was very haunting because that she is getting married to a Bolton, and that is not a great thing. But the language of the ceremony, the steps of the ceremony, just the way that everything looked out in the night with the snow and everything, it was a beautiful wedding with a really horrible, horrible husband and ending.
Yeah. The snow started to fall, Josh. Is this something that we should expect? Well, I guess you would know as a book reader, but visually, that we talk so much about winter is coming. We saw the snow starting to fall. We heard Cersei say that the weather has already started to turn. Should we be expecting just more and more of this?
Yeah, I would probably say so. I mean, we have been hearing from the very first episodes of this series, winter is coming, and I think that we are. Look, it's season 5. You got to get here. You get here already. Where are you? So we're starting to see signs of snowfall. We're starting to hear people talking about how it's really imminent. It's not just the Northerners and the Starks who talk about winter coming. It is, as you point out, it's a Cersei Lannister bringing it up. And I think if someone like Cersei is bringing it up, that means it's fairly imminent. So, yeah, I would expect that we will see more snow as the series progresses.
Okay. Let's go ahead and switch over to King's Landing and talk about everything that's going on there with the High Septon and, of course, the return of the Queen of Thorns. Lady Olenna is back.
She's back, and man, it was a great night for her until it wasn't.
Oh yeah, no, I don't like this High Septon one bit, Josh.
No, he's a real pain in the butt. He's a real jerk.
Yeah. No, I don't like any of this stuff going on with the High Septon.
Yeah, he's his whole posse, brother not Loras, brother Lancel and everybody, these are bad people. They're messed up people. They're making King's Landing. King's Landing gets so prude now. You used to be able to party in King's Landing. You used to be able to have a good time. There's no fun times in King's Landing anymore with the High Septon involved, with the High Sparrow.
Yes, and so this is the ongoing saga that we had everything going on with Sir Loras, and now we had this tribunal. What would you call this?
Yeah, it was the trial of Loras Tyrell, and then
turned an Inquisition, I believe.
An Inquisition. Yeah, and it was an ambush. It was an ambush against Marjorie. How about that?
Yep, and so we end up with seeing Sir Loras on the stand, and he swears that he didn't do anything, and then Marjorie attests to this, and she swears on the stand, and then here we go with the squire of Sir Loras, and Chekhov's birthmark is here. Chekhov's birthmark is real.
Yeah, it's a real thing. That was great. As soon as Oliver steps into the room, you just know that that's where we're going. We're going to this place where we are going to bust out the Dornish birthmark again, and it's going to be what sinks Loras here. But I think it was pretty clever the way that they used that to kind of draw Marjorie into this as well. Marjorie, who's been sitting pretty for most of this season so far. Ever since Loras got taken into custody, has been kind of losing her grip on things. But this was a really, really fast fall for her. So what do you think, Rob? What do you think the fallout of this is going to be with the Queen of Westeros is now in custody?
I don't know. Again, I don't like the High Septon stuff, but the High Septon, his forces, or the High Sparrow, his forces are just the army that Cersei gave him. How did the Cersei give him an army that's bigger than the army that the king commands?
I think that the deal with the faith militant is, they kind of operate on their own set of rules. They don't recognize the king and the queen as the highest power. They are devout. They are servants of the seven, and that's who they serve, and they esteem that higher than a Tommen or a Marjorie. So. I mean, they have great numbers. They are in. It would seem that whatever facility that they're in this scene is very much a place that is run by those people. It's not where the Kingsguard have the higher ground. And I think more importantly, Tommen, who doesn't seem to be feeling confident enough to do just about anything, and is being whispered to by his mother. His mother is, the one who's basically hoping for all of this to happen. So what is she going to do? She's going to send the knights in to bust this up. She's going to send people in to save Marjorie. I don't think so. So the circumstances are just really stacked against the Tyrells right now.
But at some point, doesn't Tommen say, "Hey, that's my girlfriend. Let me send the Kingsguard in to go save her"?
His wife.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, you would like to think so, wouldn't you? But he is, he's still got a record that he wants to hit. And I mean, he's going to have a hard time doing that without Marjorie involved. Is a much lonelier record he could be going for.
Right. I just don't feel like this is ultimately going to work in terms of outmaneuvering Lady Olenna. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like she's sharper than Cersei.
Right. Well, we get, that's certainly what Lady Olenna thinks. Lady Olenna, we have this fantastic scene between her and Cersei where Cersei is just scribbling notes, and the Queen of Thorns is like, "Could you stop? We both know you're not actually writing anything. Just cut it out." And they have this conversation where the Queen of Thorns talks about how she never liked Tywin Lannister. She didn't, she wasn't a big fan of Tywin Lannister, but she respected him because he was smart enough to realize that sometimes your rivals can, be people that you work with. And Cersei says the Lannisters have no rivals. So, she is coming from, this perspective that is very inflexible. She's talking about the Lannisters like they are the Lannisters of, pre-season 1. The Lannisters have had, a lot of success on this show, but they've also had a lot of failures as well. They've lost Joffrey, they've lost Tywin. They aren't, as badass as she's certainly claiming that they are. And I think that is a good sign that, certainly Olenna feels like she's got a leg up on Cersei mentally, and I think that you're probably not far off to say that that's the truth. I think everything that we know about Cersei and everything we get from her in that conversation should tell us that if you had to pick one in a battle of the wits, I think I would take the Queen of Thorns almost every day of the week, and I think most people would as well.
Josh, back when we did the Road to Westeros podcast series, you said you thought maybe this would be the season where we started to like Cersei. There's 4 episodes left, and I don't like her.
Yeah, I'm like Jeff Probst saying that this is going to be the season of Cersei. You're all going to love Cersei this season. No, I think that this still potentially is a season where you will get where Cersei is coming from, more than
I'm not
usual.
getting it.
There's 4 episodes left. There's time is running out, but there is still time to get in her head a little bit more. We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. But the less I say, the better.
All right, Littlefinger is also back in King's Landing, and he is first summoned by Cersei, but he has a run-in with everybody from the High Sparrow and
Other Lancel.
Yep, and they're intimidating Littlefinger and they're pushing him around. And I hate this new King's Landing, Josh.
It sucks. King's Landing used to be like It
was like Vegas, and now
it's like Vegas.
Yeah. What's the opposite of Vegas?
I don't know. Not Vegas.
I don't know.
Some terrible place.
Yeah,
some
like
place that's just
City
horrible.
Now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sucks. And Littlefinger, he can barely recognize it anymore. But he's here for business and not of the brothel variety. So he's fine as long as he can kind of get in and out.
So he's here with Cersei, and he says that he is going to work on getting her the North. and he says that he has spotted Sansa. She's up there in the north. She's with the Boltons, so he's really stoking the flames of the Boltons versus the Lannisters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he comes up with this plan that he is going to move into the north after the battle of Stannis versus the Boltons, and he wants to be Warden of the North.
Yeah. Yeah. He's making his play. This is
Climbing that ladder.
Listen, gambling outlawed in King's Landing, but when has Littlefinger ever listened to the rules? He's making a big gamble here. He's making his big pitch. He is saying that Sansa is alive. I know about this. I know where she is. Don't even worry about just like going in and trying to get her now. Stannis versus Roose is about to happen. Bolton v. Baratheon, Dawn of Justice. It's going to be huge. Both sides are going to either tear each other completely apart, or one side will win and will be licking its wounds, and that's when I will take my forces from the Vale. I will swoop in. I'll kick their ass, and I, in return, will become the man in the North, and you will love it. Things will be great. We will all have such a good time. And Cersei buys that really fast. And you would think that, like, doesn't this sound a little convenient? A little finger convenient?
It is. The last thing he says in that scene is, I live to serve.
Yeah, I live to serve. I don't believe that's true.
Mm-hmm.
He lives to serve himself.
That's true. That's true.
That's true, but I don't think he lives to serve anybody else. But Cersei, I don't know. Again, another point in your column, Rob, that maybe Cersei not the sharpest knife in the drawer if she's just buying Littlefinger at his word right here.
Okay, so now how many episodes will it take for Littlefinger to get back to the North? Do we have enough time left in the season?
Several. I'm sure like we won't see him at the North until 9 or 10.
Okay, all right, so a couple episodes. But you think in season 6 he will get back up there? Or before season 6?
I think so. Don't you?
I hope so.
I mean, that'd be terrible.
He got to King's Landing pretty quick.
He did. So whatever.
It took 2 episodes for him to get to King's Landing.
Yeah, he's using Druber. I told you.
Okay, good.
It's great service.
All right, so should we talk about Dorne? Should we talk about Arya?
Let's go to Dorne. Let's go to Dorne. Let's stick with the Lannisters. Let's talk it through. Talk through Dorne, then we can get to Tyrion, then we can finish up in Braavos. But yeah, Dorne. Both sides are making their moves against Myrcella this week. We know that the Sand Snakes had been conspiring to take her out. We know that Jaime and Bronn had infiltrated Dorne with the intentions of saving Myrcella and bringing her back to King's Landing, and these two storylines intersect in this big battle sequence in the Water Gardens. What do you think of seeing Jaime and Bronn versus the Sand Snakes?
Jaime and Bronn versus the Sand Snakes was very good. I was wondering, who might die here? Could Jaime or Bronn possibly die? I'm like, I don't think so.
I think maybe one of the Sand Snakes, right?
Yeah, you could have definitely lost the Sand Snake there, but they ended up fighting to basically a draw.
Basically a draw. Not a lot of blood drawn. I think notable that Bronn gets slashed. And we know that Oberyn Martell, he left himself some poison. Or should we be worried that Bronn got poisoned here?
Boy,
that was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, oh no, that could be bad.
I wasn't even thinking that. Boy, well, that would be.
Good luck getting to sleep tonight, Rob.
But anyway, we have Prince Doran's forces shut everything down.
Shut it down. Yeah, Arya Hota is the name of that guy who's his big bodyguard and has this big axe. He's a fun character. He hasn't really had much to do on the show, but I like this guy. But yeah, he shuts it down. He puts like the axe up against Jaime's head, and he says, "When you were whole, this would have been a good fight." But I mean, listen, Jaime, for the one-handed guy, he's already killed somebody. He held his own against these Sand Snakes. He's not doing so bad.
Yeah, he's hanging in there.
Of
course, the Sand Snakes' plot to kidnap Princess Myrcella is thwarted. So what's going to happen now? Is Prince Doran just going to put everybody in their own separate corners? Okay, Sand Snakes over here, Jaime Lannister and Bronn over here, Myrcella over here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we don't know what the fallout of this is going to be yet. I do think that we are going to What little we do know of Doran Martell so far, of Dr. Bashir Martell, is that he is not like the fierce warrior that his brother is. He's the guy who says that, patience, let's be patient, let's just calm down, let's take a breath. When Ilaria Sand is saying, let's go avenge Oberyn right now, Doran is the one who's saying, nope, let's take a minute here. So he is somebody who exercises caution. He's somebody who likes to think things through, talk things through. So I feel like, in his hands, this situation, I think there's going to be a lot more talking before there's any more bloodletting.
Okay, well, that's what everybody wants to hear on Game of Thrones.
Sure. Hey, the talking's fun, right? We like to talk.
It can be fun if you have the right characters there. So let's see.
Okay.
Jaime will have some explaining to do, you would think, with Prince Doran.
Yeah, Jaime, you have some explaining to do?
He certainly will. And it doesn't look like Princess Marcella wants to leave either.
No, she's into the Trystane thing. She likes Trystane.
She wants to stay.
I understand. This is a very hot couple. This might be the hottest couple in Westeros.
They might be. Don't tell Sam and Gilly.
Yeah, I mean, like them breaking up would be like a true Bieber-Selena breakup type of situation.
Yeah, they're like on the cover of like the like teen beat in Westeros. They're like the new it couple.
Yeah, Westeros Weekly.
Westeros Weekly. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into some of the stuff with Ser Jorah and Tyrion.
How about that cootie spot? It's getting bigger.
It's getting a little bigger.
That sucks.
And I can't believe we haven't said Wiener Merchant yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think given the end of this episode, I think that we need to ease into being able to talk about what was a pretty funny thing, that there are Wiener Merchants that we have to talk about here. But yeah, I think that we've earned our way to Wiener Merchant. Let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. And we have Jorah and Tyrion having a long talk, and you knew there was going to be some Lord Commander Mormont stuff going on from the previously on. We spent a couple scenes on him. Ser Jorah finds out about his dad passing away. Doesn't let it faze him. Boom. On to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, these Northerners, man, they don't have time to cry.
But
I ain't got time to cry.
Ain't got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. But we have time for pirates.
Always time for pirates. Always time for Mr. Echo. Always time for Mr. Echo. Did you recognize Mr. Echo there, one of the pirates?
I cannot say that I did.
Mr. Echo from Lost. He is he is the leader of this gang of pirates.
Are they more tolerant about drinking on the set of Game of Thrones?
Man, I don't know. I don't know that I wouldn't say that this guy is safe either way. He's just being introduced here as kind of like a Joe Schmo pirate. You got to imagine he's not logged for this world, but hopefully he is not getting behind the wheel the way that he was on Lost.
Boy, so Jorah and Tyrion really...
I actually don't think that was his problem on Lost, but that's a different podcast. We'll talk about that another time.
Jorah and Tyrion have to talk their way out of this one. So they want to take Jorah as a slave and have him, and the irony of Jorah Mormont becoming a slave.
Yeah, because he's on Team Targaryen, and they don't do the slavery thing.
Well, and that's how he got himself banished from Westeros in the first place, was running slaves around.
That's right. Good point.
And then Tyrion, they're going to slit his throat because who knew a dwarf's member is lucky.
Yeah, dwarf's members only jacket. Yeah, they're gonna kill Tyrion. They're going to chop off his wiener, and they're going to sell it to a wiener merchant because dwarf wieners have magical properties. And good on Tyrion. Tyrion always fast on his feet. Always a fast thinker. He raises the very valid point of, but if you just kill me now and chop my wiener off, then how are they gonna know that that this wiener came from a dwarf? Yeah.
To which the pirates probably should have responded, okay, let's just kill him. Don't cut the wiener off yet.
Bring the body. Yeah.
Let's just kill him. Well, then you have to carry him, I guess, stuff like that.
Dead weight is no fun. And the smell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Why did Ser Jorah just not whip out his cootie spot at this point and say,
yeah, back up.
Who wants this? Who wants some of this?
Who wants cooties? Because then they'd probably just execute him immediately. Oh. That would probably not be great. No, that would be nice, though.
Why didn't he say to those guys, you know what? I want to give you guys a hug.
Yeah,
I
come
want to
here.
hug.
I feel a bond with you immediately. I just
I
feel
feel,
this
is it just
connection.
me, or do we have something going on?
Yeah,
Here, let's hug it out. Let's hug it
feeling
out,
something. I'm
bro.
feeling something. Yeah.
Entourage movies around the corner. Hug it. Let's
Yeah,
hug it out.
hug it out, hug it out, Lloyd. Yeah, I think these grayscale hugs. You got to be careful of that. He wants to get his cooties everywhere, George,
That would
whether
be
he wants
a
to or not.
bear hug it out from Sir
Bear,
Jorah.
yeah, bear hug it out, bear hug it out with Ser Jorah.
Yes. All right. So we'll see what happens with them because they are on their way. Actually, they're going to bring them by Danny. This was all very convenient that Danny happened to open the fighting pits and that Ser Jorah would be great in the fighting pits. You like Ser Jorah's chances in the fighting pits of Marine?
Yeah, but do you think that he's actually going to wind up in the fighting pits? Don't you think that he gets to Meereen and is like, let me flash my badge. I'm a big deal here. Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be the case. But do you think that he would actually hold up well in the fighting
Yeah,
pits?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did kill a Dothraki. He killed one of Khal Drogo's riders. He's the bear. He's a Mormont. We know that the Mormonts are legit. We saw Lord Commander Mormont. We know that these guys have what it takes. I do like his odds. I think that there is something to be said. Is his fighting style, does that mesh with the fighting style of the fighting pits? Maybe not. But I like Ser Jorah in most combat situations. I think it's pretty good to bet on Ser Jorah.
I felt bad when they said he was 60.
I know, he's like, I'm not 60.
Yeah, because I feel like on Game
I'm
of
like
Thrones,
58, but I still
like
got some time.
somebody who's 60 is like old and decrepit. Like
Uh-huh.
somebody who's 60.
He's
Like, I feel
53.
like,
He's 53. Ian Glenn, actor Ian Glenn, 53. What the hell, guys?
yeah, what the hell is right? Anyway, so we'll see what happens ultimately. How long will it take for the pirates to get to Marine?
What do you want? You want to call that?
I feel like we're on the every other episode track. I feel like
1 to 2 episodes. So not next week. Week after.
week after. Okay,
Sounds right.
let's talk about Arya.
Sure.
A lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on with Arya, especially in the first half of the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting stuff. We got to see. What's behind that door. What's behind door number 1? A bunch of faces. The governor would love that room, by the way.
This is the best room that we've got here in the House of Black and White.
You're making me look pretty sane right now.
So the faces there, though, they're taking the dead bodies and they're taking the faces off them, or those statues. What exactly is going on there?
It's simple. We're gonna take your face off.
So that's what they're doing? But what
That's
are
what
they
they're
doing with
doing.
the rest of the body?
I don't know if they're scrubbing them down. They're giving them a good cleanse before they remove them from the face. It's just a very respectful thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole process is obviously murky, but we've got this collection of faces that it's an enormous collection of faces. I don't think that there is anywhere in the world of Ice and Fire that has a bigger collection of just like free floating faces hanging up on pillars in this gigantic hall. I think it's pretty safe to say that this is probably the biggest. What it means, how they're able to use them, why they need to go through the process of scrubbing down the bodies and all this stuff. Shrug your shoulders is my response to that right now. But magic doesn't need detailed explanation. Not always on this show.
Well, that's why we need a dwarf wiener to be able to understand some of this magic a little bit better.
Perhaps. Maybe that would help. But no, I think just the scene was really awesome. Just going behind the door and seeing deeper into the House of Black and White and seeing this huge collection was just pretty freaking rad.
Absolutely. So we saw some drama with Arya and Arya 2 tonight. And Arya 2 told her like this whole story about how that she had to go to Jake and Hagar because she wanted to kill her stepmother. And then Arya's like, oh my God. And then Arya 2's like, and is that a true story?
It's like, no. I could have just been lying to you. How about that? I may have just pastored you. But no, yeah, do you like Arya 2 D2's lying game, or do you think that that's kind of BS?
No, I like that. What I didn't like was when Jake and Hagar was beating Arya.
Yeah, that was mean.
I didn't
Bad
like
night
that.
for the Stark Girls. Oh God.
I didn't like that at all.
Yeah. This is tough. Yeah, that sucked. And also, he was hitting her though. Just like to take that, the judgment out of it for a second. Just like to talk about what was happening was he was hitting her every time she was lying, and we as an audience knew when she was lying, when she was getting a detail wrong. Like my father died in battle. That's not what happened. Things like that. And when she starts talking about why she left Sandor Clegane to die, like she hated him and she wanted him tortured, like he mercilessly hits her. So what do you think that means? What do you think that means in terms of Arya's true motivation for why she left the Hound the way that she did?
Is it because she's? Don't hit me with a stick if I get this wrong. Okay.
I don't have. Listen, it's established. Not athletic. I don't have that kind of reach.
Could she not bring herself to do it?
Yeah, I think that that's what he's alluding to, right? Like I think it's, and it's not like we haven't seen Arya killed before, but it does seem like he seems to be driving at this idea that Arya just didn't have it in her to pull the trigger, so to speak. And if she doesn't have that in her, how can she do the job that she seems to want to do, this whole faceless man act? So I thought that was interesting.
Okay. And so we saw Arya with a young girl that her dad brought in who was not doing well, and Arya ends up, telling this girl a lie. Is Arya telling the girl a lie because she's just trying to give her something to believe in, or is there like a more nefarious reason why they're lying to her here?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the mechanics of it are. Like, do you have to get the person to drink the water, and like it has to be their idea? They have to feel good about it. You would think that you could probably just like dunk her face in the water if you really just wanted to have this water kill this person. I don't know, but maybe it's if you drink the water, that has something to do with your face being used as one of the faceless men's identities. I'm not really sure. I kind of half expected like the little girl to turn out to be Arya too, and the dad to turn out to be Jake and Hagar, and it was just another one of these freaking pranks that they're pulling on Arya.
There's such pranksters at the House
I
of
know.
Blood.
That's what I've come to expect from these pranksters. I kind of expected that that's where we were going, but no.
What was the last thing that Jake and Hagar said to Arya in the episode about how is the girl ready?
Is the girl ready? Yeah, what did she say? Hold on, let me look that up real quick. Yeah, he says a girl is not ready to become no one, but she's ready to become someone else.
Arya 3?
Arya 3, yeah. Return of the Arya. Yeah, I think, if the ultimate goal is to become one of these faceless men, and if one of these faceless men is, synonymous with becoming no one, he is saying you're not ready for that yet. But if he's saying you're ready to become someone else, then maybe that means we're ready for the next step of your training, and that involves this face-changing, shape-shifting act that we do.
Sasha Fierce?
Sasha Fierce, Arya Fierce.
Sansa
Yeah.
Fierce?
Yeah, that could be where we're going.
Okay. Josh, anything else from the episode, or do you want to open this up to questions?
Let's open it up. Let's hear from the folks. I'm sure there's a lot to get through tonight.
A lot to talk about here with our questions, and let's start here with question number 1 from Jason Burning, who says, "Is it just me, or is Tyrion's blonde hair getting a bit too dark? Mainly the beard." That's where most people wanted to start tonight, right?
That's definitely the breaking news of the episode. That's the major headline. What do you think? This is a controversial subject, Rob. Do you think that the beard has gotten too dark on Tyrion?
I feel like in the pilot they really give Tyrion very blonde hair, and it does not look good. I think I'm ready to just pretend we know he's a Lannister, but
it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. All right. Here's from Robert Miller. This is more of the stuff we want to talk about. This is about Theon. Robert Miller says, "Will Theon snap out of being Reek? Will he inform Sansa of Bran and Rickon's escape of Winterfell? And will Theon ever give the bastard of Bolton a dose of karma?" So I think we could boil that all down to just the essential question of, is Theon going to come out to stay? Like, are we going to get rid of Reek? Are we going to wash him away forever? Is Theon going to come out of this? Or is his inaction at the end of the episode, is that really telling that that guy is gone and it's really Reek is here to stay?
Well, Josh, with Reek / Theon, are we supposed to, feel angry at Theon at this point in time because of what he didn't do. Because, you could certainly make a case that what Ramsay did to Theon is, he does horrible things to Sansa, but he's also done horrible things to Theon.
Right.
And has, tortured him for, a year plus.
Correct. Yeah, he's done
ways,
horrible things to him. Horrible things.
He has, horribly hurt both of these people in this scene.
Yeah, I think that some of the responses that I've been seeing personally tonight is a lot of people saying, like, there's no way that Reek can ever be redeemed. There's no redemption for Theon because he just stood there and watched. And I agree, it sucks that he just stood there and watched. But, get inside the head of this guy for a little while and just, like, think on all the things that we've seen Ramsay put Theon through over these past couple of seasons. This isn't a guy who is, rushing to heroic action. This is a guy who has held a blade to Ramsay Snow's throat, to Ramsay Bolton's throat, shaving him, and, just proceeded like he was his barber, didn't do anything, had every opportunity in the world to just slice his throat. So he's really been conditioned to not act out against his master. So I think, we would really hope that Theon could emerge and Theon could be the guy that gets Sansa out of that situation, but I think that's expecting a lot from a guy who's, been turned into a zombie. Whether or not that is going to be the case forever, that's what we could argue. But I think in terms of tonight, there's been a lot of groundwork laid by this show as for why Reek doesn't just turn on Ramsay in this moment. Why he doesn't just slit his throat when he has the razor up against his throat. So I think that the show has done a lot of work in getting us to understand why Reek and Theon are who they are right now.
But in some ways now, I feel like Sansa and Reek have something in common almost, and I wonder maybe if there could be some place down the road where that
some reconciliation.
This common hatred of this person. I don't even know if Reek has the hatred for him, but I think for Reek, I think that if Ramsay is off at some point, I think that's the only point where we could see Reek turn back into Theon.
Well, that's a good lead into this next question. This is a question from Robert, who writes in and says, "Who do you want to have the honor of killing Ramsay Snow Bolton? Reek, Arya, or Sansa?" What do you think? Do you think that one of those three would have the honor of offing Ramsay one of these days?
It should be Sansa. It should be Sansa, and Reek should get to watch.
Yeah. That would be pleasurable. I would love that.
Yes, that'd be good.
I would enjoy that tremendously. That would be terrific.
You should get to watch.
Hopefully that's where we're going. I think it would be really satisfying for Reek himself to get to do it, but I think that we've got a lot of work to do to get Reek in a position where he'd be willing to do that. Sansa, listen, Sansa had a horrific thing happen to her, but Sansa Stark is a Stark, and Sansa Stark is a badass, and the North remembers, and I don't think that Sansa Stark is just going to, she's a strong, sturdy character, and I could see Ramsay Bolton really ruining the day that he crossed the line with her.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Lauren Garcia. Which method do you think the pirates will die? My brother says pirates with grayscales fed to dragons. Then my brother continued and jokingly asked, will that kill the dragons?
Oh my God, that is a chain of events. Can dragons get grayscale?
Tainted meat.
Tainted meat. Or when they roast the meat, will that get rid of it?
I think that's the answer. I think as long as they don't eat
you gotta
it
cook
raw,
the meat. Yeah.
Right. You got to cook it, otherwise you could get scalemanella.
Right. Grayscale manila.
Grayscale manella if you don't cook it.
Yeah. What do you think? These pirates, are they toast?
As in dragon food?
Yeah, are they dragon food? Are they grayscale before they become dragon food? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know necessarily that they have to die, the pirates. I think that they could just if they bring Ser Jorah to Meereen and say, here's my contestant to be in the fighting pit. I think Dany could just say, hey, but he's mine.
He's mine. Claimed.
I'll give you whatever gold currency in Meereen they use, and then they could just be on their way. They don't have to
Right.
necessarily die, the pirates.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
They
All
like
right.
money.
This is Michelle Jones. Michelle Jones writes, "How do you think what just happened to Sansa will change her? Will it make her stronger or weaker?" What do you think, Rob? What do you think is the follow up with Sansa after what happened tonight?
Well, I think for Sansa, I feel like that this is not going to be like another Reek situation. I don't think that she's going to go catatonic after this. I think that she is going to become, angrier and more emboldened, and I think that she becomes a stronger figure after this.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Hopefully, certainly, hopefully. We've one reek is enough. One reek is enough. That's a really depressing thing to think about. Sansa getting the reek treatment. But I think what you've really hit on is there is a ticking clock element, here with the Bolton situation. If it's not going to be the Baratheons that get the better of them, then Littlefinger and the Knights of the Vale are coming. So hopefully, there's just not enough time for Ramsay Bolton to do too much more damage.
Okay.
All right. Let's hear from Katie D. Katie D, the muffin that sucks, writes in, "Did Littlefinger really just sell out Sansa? I actually thought he cared for her." I think you and I agree on this, Rob, right? That Littlefinger, when he's telling Cersei that I will serve you Sansa Stark's head on a platter, he doesn't truly mean that.
Yes, he is not loyal to Cersei anymore. Anything he says to Cersei should be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah, a grain of salt, a gray scale of salt.
I don't know. No more grace.
That was a reach. All right. Teddy Blue Bear, Spicy Wasabi writes in, George R.R. Martin signed off on that last scene. George R.R. Martin did sign off on that last scene in the sense that he signed off on HBO making a show out of his book. He's a producer on the show, but he does not have final say. This is a David Benioff and Dan Weiss call. So if you wanna lay this at the feet of anybody, it's the two guys who run the show. But George R. R. Martin, he signed a deal. I think that he gets say in terms of what happens on the show, and he has input in terms of what happens on the show. But he is not the final decision maker. So, he signed a deal to make a show, so he doesn't really get to say whether or not that scene happens.
Do you think that this is going to be an uproar like from season 4, where we had the scene with Cersei and Jaime in the Sept?
I think that we're going to be talking about this a lot this week. Yeah, I do. I don't think that it will be like that scene in the sense that I don't think that the show intended for the Jaime and Cersei thing to be a rape scene. And that was a huge point.
You don't think that they did intend for it to be?
I don't think so. I mean, I think when you hear all of the interviews with the actors who played Jaime and Cersei and the people who were involved in it, I don't think that was necessarily their intent, and I think that was a big part of the problem of why people were so really, really affected by that scene, and not necessarily on board with the scene from a creative standpoint. I think that this is a clear-cut rape scene. What happened between Ramsay and Sansa tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no ambiguity in between like what the show was trying to pull off versus how the audience is interpreting it. I think where the questions are gonna come in, and where the conversation is gonna go this week, if I were to guess, is like, why does this have to happen? Like, does this have to happen to Sansa? Why has the show gone too far? Is this just too much for Game of Thrones? It's such a depressing show to begin with. Is it a bridge too far? And I think that a lot of people are gonna say yeah. And I think that there's some people who are gonna say no. This is the world that we've bought into. And I'm curious to see how that dialogue plays out over the coming week. But I do think that we will be hearing about this quite a bit, and not unfairly so.
Okay, let's keep going. R. Philly says, "Did seeing the Hall of Faces in the House of Black and White make the Faceless Men's magic more or less exciting to you guys?" Now, that wasn't like the Hall of Fame of the Faceless
These
Men
are the best faces we've ever worn. Oh, they're
right,
so great.
right. They retired.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Like in the NFL Hall of Fame, that they have like busts of all the best players.
That's going over my head.
Did that make you pumped up, Josh?
The NFL Hall of Fame reference, or seeing all of the heads? Yeah. See, no, it was awesome. It was really cool. It's always fun to see the show really, really lean into some of these higher fantasy moments. It doesn't always land really well with everybody. You know, thinking about the big scene in the season 4 finale where Bran and Hodor and Jojen and Mira are fighting off, you know, the army of skeletons, and everyone's like, "What the hell is happening? What show am I watching?" You know, so sometimes it doesn't land well with people. I tend to enjoy it when the show tries for that stuff, and this kind of felt along those lines to me.
This was fine. Yeah, this was fine.
You know, I thought it was cool. I thought it was enjoyable. I thought it was weird as hell, and I like that. I like weird. Weird is good.
Okay. What about this question from Natalie?
Let's take this question from Natalie. Natalie writes, is Sansa close to putting a candle in the high tower? How will that play out? Brienne cannot think that she can take on a whole army. Well, I don't know. Brienne's pretty much a badass, basically. Do you think that Sansa is going to be lighting that candle in the high tower sometime soon, Rob? I think that would be the first thing that I do after this night. I think it's straight to the high tower. Hey, North, remember me? Get me out of here. This is not good. This is not okay.
Let me just ask this question, and this is just a devil's advocate question. When Sansa went along with this plan, when Littlefinger said you're going to marry Roose Bolton,
right.
Now I'm sure in her wildest imagination she did not imagine that Theon would be watching her on her wedding night.
Right.
But is this not what she knew she was going to be getting into?
Oh, I don't think that she knew that this was how it was going to go down. No, I don't think so.
But minus the Theon part.
Minus the Theon part.
Say Theon wasn't there. Isn't this what she kind of agreed to be getting into when she agreed to Littlefinger's plan of go marry Ramsay Bolton?
Like, is she accepting that there is going to be a sexual encounter with
right.
her new husband?
Right.
Yeah, I would assume so. But that being said, this was this was not what she planned for, and I think it's far beyond just the Theon of it all. It's the ripping her clothes off and being forceful in language and action. So it's very different from what she signed on for. It's not what she signed on for at all.
She might have thought that that Ramsay was going to be a nice guy.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's not like
Theon was a very nice guy. I'm sorry.
Joffrey.
Tyrion was a very nice guy.
Yeah, Tyrion was a nice guy. Maybe she thought it was going to go more in that direction. No, I don't think that she was excited for this at all. But I don't think that she could have imagined that it was going to be as horrible as it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is from Muffin That Sucks. Why on earth did Sansa let Miranda into her room after that kennel situation? Yeah, but this is, there is good Sansa
question.
and bad Sansa.
Great question. Yeah, Sansa. I think maybe just to throw it in Miranda's face. She has that great moment with Miranda where she's like, "What are you? His ex-girlfriend? Are you a child? Get out of here. What is this with you and your broken heart? Come on." Maybe she was looking forward to just mean girling Miranda, but she's brave. She's a brave person. She's the one who walks towards the kennels. She's gonna let Miranda in her room.
Okay. All right. We got one last question. From Donald wants to know, do you think that Arya will be able to get revenge this season on some of the names she wants dead?
Yeah, I think wait for Meryn Trant to show up on a Previously On, right? when he shows up, that's the tell.
That'll be the cue.
Yeah, when he shows up on a Previously On Game of Thrones, Meryn Trant and Mace Tyrell were heading to Braavos. I think that's the moment in that episode you'll be like, okay, something's probably going to happen here. Okay. Whether she pulls it off or not is the question, but I think that's going to be your first opportunity to see if Arya can get some revenge.
All right. We are just beginning here on this week of Game of Thrones coverage, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we'll have, it's the standard procedure here. We're going to have our feedback show. We will have the Game of Thrones book club, tons and tons and tons and tons to unpack from, a very heavy episode for sure. So lots to talk about, and we will get into all of that this week.
All right, voicemails come to us at postshowrecaps.com/voicemail, or you could send us your emails at got@postshowrecaps.com. Okay. Josh, we need a hashtag tonight.
We need a hashtag.
Okay, I've got some options for you.
Let's hear it.
Okay. I've got Chekhov's birthmark.
Uh-huh.
I've got Westeros Weekly.
That's what I was thinking.
I've got Dwarves members only.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not tonight. Maybe not tonight.
I have a Wiener Merchant.
I think also not tonight.
Okay.
Maybe not tonight.
Bear Hug It Out
I like that.
and Arya 3.
All right, go with any of those. I like Arya 3. I like Bear Hug It Out. I like Westeros Weekly.
Okay, there you go.
Give us any one of those and we'll be happy.
All right. So
Keep your Wiener Merchants away, please.
Yeah, we don't want that. I mean, like that. That's probably just a line. Like, hey, it's magic. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to see me make it disappear? No.
Oh, no.
No.
Please,
Stop
no.
it.
Stop that now.
Stop it.
Stop. Come
Okay.
on.
All right. Josh, anything else tonight from tonight's Game of Thrones?
No. I think we covered it, and I think anything we didn't cover, we will cover this week. So get those questions into us. Show up for feedback show up for book club, and we'll hash out the rest of this episode.
All right, great stuff tonight. You could follow Josh on Twitter. He's at Round Howard. I am at Rob Cesternino. We've got much more coming up this week on the post-show recaps. Josh, you working on anything good?
Mostly Game of Thrones right now, but there might be some fun things that are popping later in the week. I hear that there's a Lost anniversary coming up, so maybe we'll do something about that.
Okay. All right. So much more to come. Subscribe to our post-show recaps podcast feed at postshowrecaps.com/iTunes, or for Game of Thrones only, postshowrecaps.com/GOT iTunes. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.